Football Sunday doubleheader. First in Green Bay, the Packers face the Lions.
Got it! Touchdown!
Then at MetLife Stadium, the Giants host the undefeated Patriots. Coverage begins Sunday at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio. Passion, opinion, must-hear radio. This is the Paul Finebaum Show. And now, Paul Finebaum.
Live in Starkville, the stadium awaits tomorrow afternoon. Alabama, number 2 ranked in the country, taking on the highly ranked Mississippi State Bulldogs. We welcome you back. We are heading toward the final hour of the program. The first 2 hours, very eventful, very cheery. We had Coach Mullen on and Scott Strickland, and then we heard the news from Missouri about Gary Pinkel announcing that he is stepping down at the end of the season due to health reasons. He was diagnosed in May, for those of you just joining us, with a type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer of the blood. He decided to coach initially, and then after more tests in late October, he reassessed, and the announcement coming today. Joe Tessitore with us. Joe, we were just in Columbia. I know you spent a lot of time with Coach Pinkel, and I know, like all of us, we're very disappointed and heartbroken about this news.
Yeah, first and foremost, thoughts with Gary and a hope of a speedy recovery here, and just reading some of the quotes from him, you understand the seriousness of what he's dealing with.
It's interesting that we were in Columbia last week, and there were so many things going on. We were there to do a show. You were there to do a game and a show. And now all of this. Just reflect for a moment. He's still coaching, obviously, but not for long. On your relationship with Coach Pinkel.
I've broadcast many of Gary's games. I think Gary is one of these guys that has been grossly underrated as a head football coach for many years. I think people forget his longevity. I think they forget what he did in the MAC prior to even coming to Mizzou. I think they forget what Mizzou was prior to his arrival. They often forget the success he had in the other conference of winning division titles. And now you reflect on the instant success he had at Missouri. He's had as good of a run as anybody's had. You know, last night I was broadcasting the Virginia Tech game, and you start reflecting on Frank Beamer. I think there are very few guys, when you think of this generation of longevity, what they took over, what they grew it into, like Beamer, like a Bill Snyder, like a Gary Pinkel. He's in a small world fraternity of guys who have really built it up the mountain.
And you think about 5 weeks ago, we were sitting around talking about Steve Spurrier. It's just been an amazing year in terms of legendary coaches, iconic coaches with great longevity.
You know, I wonder, because of what we're dealing with in the modern era, the game of constant turnover and the quick trigger of athletic directors and boosters and administrators, if we're going to see these kinds of coaching runs a generation from now, if we will have the guys like a Frank Beamer, like a 15-year run of a Gary Pinkel or a Mark Richt and some of these guys as we've had.
And we mentioned Rick, and that conversation is on hold. Last week, that it was the number one conversation. But you think about the longevity of Frank Beamer. But years ago, when I grew up, and later when you grew up, I mean, coaches were.
That's what you did.
They were there 25 years.
It was your job. You committed to it. You built a master plan of a program. Frank Beamer wouldn't have survived his first 6 years in this day and age. They were losing at Virginia Tech. He wouldn't, in this era, he wouldn't have survived it. Gary Pinkel was losing the first couple of years at Mizzou, and who knows the way people react. So when you stay the course and you believe in a guy, by the way, Paul, for the most part, everybody who's a head coach at this level knows what they're doing. Yeah. They're really smart guys who are accomplished and successful for a reason. If you stay the course and you allow it to be built brick by brick the way Gary Pinkel did at Mizzou, you're going to be sitting back after 15 years with a really good legacy football coach.
No doubt. There are so many other things going on, and obviously in the world right now there are very terrible things happening overseas. But we're here to talk about the sport we love, college football, and this is an amazing weekend. We were here last year. We thought we saw the scene of the year. We may see one tomorrow.
I think they're very excited for this game, and I think they have good reason to be, because I think Dak Prescott is on the field. Dak Prescott's a special player. He is. Listen, when it comes to the thought of can they pull an upset, you know how typically great upsets happen because you have one player who's just better than everybody else, and he wills it to happen and puts the team on his shoulders and brings them there. I think Alabama's the best team in the country, but I'm not so sure Dak Prescott isn't the best veteran football player in the country who I trust.
And it will be on our show tomorrow. I have no idea what will happen, but we had the opportunity to spend some time with Dak.
Listen,
I mean, never recover from this.
Well, I don't know how you feel, but there are very few superstar players who would engage and do what Dak Prescott was willing to do and film with us today. So there's your little tease ahead.
Hey, I don't want to say too much, but
it was awesome.
I'm still struggling as a result.
I do want to say one more thing about this Missouri situation. And beyond Pinkel and his situation, which that's first and foremost my thoughts are Gary and his health. This is going to be an interesting year when it comes to job openings.
Yeah.
This is going to be a year that greatly impacts college football for many years to come. We were at 10 openings before this. I think there's going to be a treble effect here because of other head coaches coming in to replace some of these jobs. I think we could have upwards of 30 job openings. This is not the year that you want to be on the open market to fill a coaching vacancy.
No, I remember it was a week or two ago. We were sitting early in the morning on the bus talking about this and what could happen, and no one anticipated this job. But there's a domino effect, Joe, with every opening, and we're not even there yet because there are still some very big jobs that could become open.
Especially considering the jobs that are already open, knowing that there will probably be other head coaches leaving to take those jobs. I mean, USC is open. End of story. Many think that's the number one job in all of college football. That is going to create a domino effect, and who knows where it's all headed. This is just the beginning. We haven't reached the end of the season. When we get to the silly season, when all the firings happen and all this takes effect, and we're already at the number we're at.
Let me get your thoughts about the playoff, because you're on the front line of this sport with all the things you do, from the Thursday night game to your college football final show, which sets the table for breakfast the next morning. We're 2 weeks in. What's going on with this committee?
With the committee, I think the committee feels good about who they have on top, and I think the committee spends a lot of time of thinking about numbers 4 through about 9, and they want to make sure they're really vetting that out and putting themselves in position to have a November that is not filled with headaches and finger pointing and questioning. And I think the committee should just let the schedule take care of itself, and they'll be just fine. The one blessing of the committee is that seemingly it is a clean slate every week. So as much as you can disagree with what comes out on a Tuesday, they do allow the results of the following Saturday to have their effect.
And I've had no qualms with this committee. They're perfect.
Yeah, listen, I disagree with a lot of the numbers next to a lot of teams' names myself. But in the end, as long as they've used that schedule, let that schedule and those results act as a guide, we should be in good shape. I do worry about the overemphasis of conference championships, and I do worry about some of the voices in the room now that we only have 12, and knowing some of the players who are in that room. I know many of those personalities, and I can imagine how strong-arming
you think one
they
or two
can
may be louder than the other?
I do. Especially with a conference up north.
Yeah, way up north, where they have good cheese.
Yes.
Not that they don't have it here. Someone just brought it.
They actually have wonderful cheese here in Mississippi State, and the ice cream's incredible, too.
Joe Tessitore off and running in here from doing Frank Beamer last night.
Which was really special, Paul.
That was cool.
It was wonderful to be with Coach Beamer.
No doubt. Tomorrow morning, SEC Nation, with a special appearance by Dak Prescott.
It will be great. And I'm sure a lot to talk about with this news surrounding Gary Pinkel as well. You know, just our thoughts and prayers are with Gary and his family for a real speedy recovery.
Joe, thanks so much.
Okay, we'll see you
Joe
soon.
Tessitore, nice enough to be with us here on the set. We'll take a break. 45 minutes or so to go as we roll on. We're live in Starkville.
Hey, this is Admin. Previously on the Paul Finebaum Show.
Mark is up next in Minnesota. Hey, Mark, thank you.
I know everybody likes your show, but I'll tell you what, we live in an era of a very extensively fun time in college football, and you are such an important part of it. In 200 years from now, when we've all moved on and they try to figure out how to make a show, they're going to say, look in those archives and figure out how did they do the Paul Finebaum Show. And we are so lucky to have you.
Paul Finebaum here. Welcome back, McFarland, the Magnificent, one of the most talked about segments ever on SEC Now. Booger McFarland joining us. Booger, please tell us, we didn't really see that.
You know what, Paul? Sometimes when the bosses say do something and you're cashing a check, you just got to go ahead and do it, man.
You're telling me?
No, yeah, exactly. You of all people should know.
Have you seen some of the things I've done this year?
Yes. Riding the electric bull was kind of my favorite, though.
Yeah, that was cool. Anyway, it's great to have you on the program. A lot of folks behind me are waiting to hear your pick on Alabama, Mississippi State, but we'll let them wait just a few more minutes as we talk about some of the big games of this weekend. Georgia and Auburn. This has often been one of the headliners in college football. This year, I forgot it was even being played, so I looked down at my list and saw your notes. What gives on this one?
Well, Paul, when you look at the Georgia Bulldogs, they got to try to manufacture offense because no matter which quarterback they played, both of them have been pretty bad. So that's why they came out with this wild dog formation, trying to put Terry Godwin, putting Sony Michel at the quarterback position to try to manufacture some offense. Their defense has kept them in a lot of football games, and I think their defense is going to be pretty good. But, Paul, I'm going to go with the Auburn Tigers in this one. I think, the trend we said earlier in the season that Auburn was going to be pretty good. Early in the year, it wasn't that great, but right now, as the last couple of weeks, Auburn has been playing pretty good. I thought Jeremy Johnson looked very good last week coming out. They didn't allow him to throw the football that much, which I think helped him. But the running game, the guy we've been waiting to see all year, Jovan Robinson, finally showed up. You had him with Peyton Barber. They rushed for almost 200 yards. I like Auburn in this game in a mild upset.
Yeah, it would. It's hard. It's hard to really quantify what would an upset be because both teams have been so disappointing. Even though Georgia could still have a good record if they win this game, but they've lost most of the big games that really matter. Another under-the-radar game, Florida and South Carolina. A year ago, this was Will Muschamp's Waterloo. Losing at home, he was fired the next day. South Carolina's head coach, Steve Spurrier, is already gone, although with all the news of this week, it seems almost inconceivable. Let me get your thoughts on what happens in Columbia tomorrow.
Well, Paul, first of all, they're playing so hard for Sean Elliott. I mean, he's come in for Steve Spurrier and done a great job. The kids have bought into him, but their defense is so bad, Paul. I mean, offensively, they tried to mask it with Lorenzo Nunez and doing some things with Perry Orff, but defensively, they're just so bad. And that's right what the Florida Gators needed because last week Vanderbilt really shut them down. And if you're a Florida Gator fan, you have to be concerned heading into the SEC title game based on what you've seen from Treon Harris. I think the South Carolina Gamecocks come at the right time. I think Treon will get some confidence in his offense, and I think he'll be able to run the football. I like Florida in this one in a very, very low-scoring affair, kind of 17-13, 17-14. Offense will be at a premium in this game, though, Paul.
Let me go to Kansas City first, Mizzou and BYU. And before we even talk about the game, the stunning news this afternoon about Gary Pinkel. Yeah. Your thoughts on Pinkel and this Missouri program right now?
Well, Paul, I was in Como in the spring, and I was fortunate enough to sit down with Gary Pinkel, and something he said really stuck to me. He said, Booger, we don't recruit 5-star guys or 4 stars or 3 stars. I don't worry about stars. I recruit people because I feel if I get the right people, I can bring them to Missouri, and I can make them into the type of person, student, and player that I want them to be. And they talked about this thing called Mizzou Made. It's where when they get a kid on campus, regardless if he's a 5-star or a 1-star, they want to develop them as a person, as a student, and as a player. And they feel like their player development, their student development, is the best in the country. And I think that's why Gary Pinkel has been successful. Paul, you know Columbia, Missouri is not a hotbed for recruiting, but what Gary Pinkel has done, having 5 10-plus win seasons in Columbia, Missouri, is beyond a shadow of a doubt a miracle. But you have to give him credit because he's done it. And before he got there, Missouri had only won 10 games one time. So hats off to Gary. Prayers and thoughts go out to him as his health is in question, and hopefully he can come back soon and live a healthy life.
Tomorrow night, Baton Rouge, you were critical of Les Miles' philosophy, and what you said months ago, Booger, came true Saturday night in Tuscaloosa. Huge game. Arkansas off of a miracle finish in Oxford, LSU after a disastrous finish in Tuscaloosa. What happens here?
Well, hopefully the LSU team shows up. If you go back to last year, Paul, LSU put so much physically and mentally and emotionally into the Alabama game. I thought the Alabama game cost them the Arkansas game. And I'm not taking anything away from Arkansas because Arkansas won the game last year and they won it on the field. I just hope this year that LSU understands they still have a lot to play for. Leonard Fournette is still in the mix in the Heisman race. And if LSU has their mind right, which I think they will, I think Les has gotten their attention this week. If LSU comes out with the right mindset, they got Arkansas at home. The Arkansas defense has given up a ton of big plays, and I think LSU and Brandon Harris, and especially Leonard Fournette, will be able to take advantage of that. I got LSU in a high-scoring affair, 31-27. Hopefully LSU's mind is right because if they are, they're the better football team.
Finally, Starkville, Mississippi.
Stark Vegas.
Stark Vegas. Bama comes rolling in here, not too far a trip from Tuscaloosa, as you all know, taking on Mississippi State, which has played very well under Dak Prescott. Your thoughts?
Well, Paul, everybody's given Alabama, the crown already because they had such an amazing performance against LSU, and they dominated. And Derrick Henry, with 210 yards on 38 carries. But here's the thing. I do not think Alabama will be able to run against Mississippi State. Mississippi State has some of the biggest defensive linemen in the conference, led by SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week in Chris Jones. So I think they'll be able to stop the running game. Where I do not think Mississippi State can hold up is in the passing game because they've lost Will Redmond, they've lost Kendrick Marquette, and so Tavez Calhoun is going to have to lead himself with a bunch of youngsters trying to keep in check Calvin Ridley, trying to keep in check O.J. Howard. So I think Alabama wins this game. It's going to be a close game, not a blowout, and I think Alabama does it in the air and not on the ground, Paul. Dak Prescott, if Mississippi State is to be in this game late, Dak Prescott has to have a 300-100 day. He's got to throw for 300 yards. He's got to rush for 100 because it's been proven when you beat Alabama, your quarterback must play sensational. And there's no doubt in my mind that Dak Prescott can be sensational. My only concern is the Mississippi State pass defense.
Booger, before you go, I want to get to heard you on Sports Center earlier in the week talking about the college football playoff. Your thoughts on where we are right now? I mean, obviously you can argue about the top. You can't argue about the top 3, maybe the 4th. But what about Iowa at number 5?
Paul, here's the thing that concerns me. We look at the 0 behind Iowa's name, and we automatically assume, yeah, they're a good football team. And I'm not taking anything away from Iowa. They've played some good football. But by and large, I do not think Iowa is a great team. I think they play some pretty good football. And I think when it's all said and done, Iowa is going to play Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. And it wouldn't surprise me if the score is very similar to that of Wisconsin last year, 59-0. I just think that Ohio State is that much better than everybody in that conference. And I think when push comes to shove, we'll see it. I just find it very, very hard that the College Football Playoff Committee moved Oklahoma State up only a few spots, and then moved Iowa up so many spots. Like, to me, Oklahoma State deserved to be in the top 4, and Iowa did not deserve to be number 5. I found that fascinating how they could do that.
I agree completely. Booger McFarland the Magnificent, thank you so much for your time. We'll talk to you next week, Booger. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, serious story going on in Kansas City. Gary Pinkel walking into Arrowhead Stadium not long after it was announced that he would be stepping down due to health reasons. We'll go to Kansas City in a few moments and get more reaction.
Have you heard?
We saw Gary Pinkel a moment ago walking into Arrowhead Stadium with his wife and friends. The Missouri football team on the field right now at Arrowhead. Everyone looking forward to this game as perhaps a bounce back from Missouri. And then the tumultuous week in Columbia, and then the news today that Gary Pinkel stepping down due to health reasons at the end of the year. Marcus, I know you've always enjoyed your conversations with Coach Pinkel. Your reaction to what we heard about an hour ago?
Yeah, man. Obviously, the health takes precedence over what he's needing to do and deal with, and I'm pretty sure this was a family decision. The one thing that's hard for me is that Gary Pinkel has become a stalwart in college football. He's one of those guys that is not really mentioned in the college lore of college coaches, but he's done the job. He's done the job very successfully, and I think a lot of people probably won't really appreciate him until he's gone. But, you know, our prayers and thoughts are absolutely with Gary Pinkel and his family, and hopefully he makes a full recovery and he has an opportunity to at least be around the game that he loves so much.
Yeah, you know, I've said this a couple of times to friends of mine in Missouri. I was actually on Coach Pinkel's show last week, and I said it again, that I didn't understand him at first.
Yeah.
And I kept having this dialogue with Missouri fans. Well, he's really a great coach. And I said, well, his record's not very good. They said, well, you don't understand the whole picture. And then he got on this run, and then I was fortunate to get to know him.
Yeah.
And I think he's just one of those sensitive. I mean, he's a hard-nosed, old-school coach, but he also has that sensitive side.
He has a good soul, man, and that's what you feel. You know, when you have a chance to talk to as many coaches as we talk to, you realize that these guys are really invested in their job, but Gary Pinkel was really invested in his players and the people around him. And that's one thing that stood out to me about him, even with the events that happened at Missouri, for him to come and take a stance for his team.
Yeah.
It says a lot about his character and the type of man he was. So, you know, we talk about football and we talk about losing coaches and changes and coaches getting fired. This is a blow. This is a blow. We're losing a really good one in this conference with Gary Pinkel leaving. And as a player, I know that relationship between a coach. Me and Coach Saban was as close as anybody that I've ever had in my life. A male mentor to me, taught me a lot of things about life, helped me and enabled me to promote to levels that I am now. And I know a lot of guys that have the same thing to say about him.
Yeah, no, I mean, he really was extraordinary. And, you know, people can take any side of an issue they want, and that's fine. The two of us are never going to disagree with someone for having a varying opinion. We may have a conversation about it. But what he did this week, I thought, showed a lot about who he is, and really what he did during the Michael Sam incident.
Absolutely.
I mean, he stood up for Michael. He sheltered him in the sense that he was part of that family. No one knew about it. And I think those two incidents, to me, are examples of who Gary Pinkel is, a long way from the football field.
And, Paul, one thing about it, man, and one thing my family used to always tell me, and, you know, my mom and dad especially, is that love has no stipulations. And you can tell that this guy loved the people that he was around. And he was going to support them. He was going to chastise them when they were wrong also. You see the Matty Mock incident, suspending him. So he did it the right way. And I think, especially in this day and age with players getting so much notoriety and visibility coming out of high school, being on the college campus, you just seem to get the feel that Gary Pinkel was teaching these guys how to be men and how to address situations honestly and maturity-wise. And he's had some hard decisions to make while he's been the head coach at Missouri, but he's made them gracefully and he's done the job the right way. And oh, by the way, he's been to the SEC championship 2 times back-to-back. And so he did it the right way, you know. Frank Sinatra, I did it my way.
Good song. We're getting over you.
I do a little bit
You're coming
of that.
over to my side now. One or two more questions. Marcus has to head over and do some work with the SEC Nation team. But we're here in Starkville. We had the honor of being with Dak Prescott earlier.
No question.
I think Dak walked away, though, like shaking his head about me.
Dak enjoyed you, Paul. He thought you did a Bruce Dickinson.
We did a takeoff of the famous cowbell incident from SNL, and I will tell you, Marcus, Dak and I we had this connecting role in the skit, which I have not seen. Maybe you have.
Yeah.
You seen it?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
How bad? I mean, how embarrassed am I going to be in front of America tomorrow?
You did great. You've done a lot of stuff to embarrass yourself, though. So it'll just be one more to put in the books. But it was great.
I went crazy.
You did. You lost it a little bit. You lost your mind. But I'm around you when you lose your mind quite a bit.
You are. I don't think I've ever lost my mind when you weren't around.
I know, right? But people will see you losing your mind for real this time.
And if I'm not acting either on Broadway or in Hollywood next week, there will be a major upset.
You had to give him more cowbell, bro.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
That's what Dak asked for.
That's what he asked for.
What about his game tomorrow?
I think it's huge for him. It's a great stage for him, but it's a great stage for Mississippi State. They flew under the radar. They only have 2 losses on the season. And, obviously when Alabama comes in, everybody says, oh, here we go, the Crimson Tide rolling in. But I think 15, man, and Dak, who I'm referring to, I think this game may kind of, it won't define his career, but it'll be a great, even if he plays great. If Mississippi State loses the game and Dak plays well and he has this team looking good and the ability to rally and compete against Alabama, there's no reason why they can't win the game. But he's going to have to play extraordinary like he's been doing all season long. The fact that he's not mentioned in the top 5 in the Heisman voting is beyond me.
But last year he was the favorite for a big part of the season.
And look, when you think about the Heisman committee, they factor in wins, they factor in big games, big time moments. He's been having those. But this is his stage. We saw Derrick Henry usurp Leonard Fournette last week with his performance with the Alabama-LSU game because the nation's eyes was on that game.
Oh, yeah.
So they said this guy is obviously the best player in the country, but he has the same opportunity tomorrow. And the one thing I love about Dak Prescott is that he seems to always keep it in perspective.
Oh, he's cool.
And just, I love playing for guys with the kind of energy and the confidence that he has when he walks on the field. And look, if you don't think that these other 10 guys on offense feel that and they're going to feed off that tomorrow, you're mistaking yourself. So I'm looking forward to a good ball game.
So are many people around Starkville. We've been here all day.
I'm going to the basketball game tonight.
Are you?
Yep.
You want to see Mr. Newman, don't you?
I'm going to try to shoot a jumper. No. Is this an exhibition game?
This is a real game.
This is a real game. Oh, well, they need me then. They need me tonight. I go in there and get 5 quick fouls and some rebounds.
That game's at
8.
You may still be working here, buddy.
I know, I may still be here.
See, I don't have to do that stuff.
I may catch the second half.
Yeah, no.
You can go pass out some towels and give them some water.
Marcus, thank you very much for being here, buddy.
Appreciate you, brother.
We've been talking all afternoon long about the Gary Pinkel situation, and certainly that has been the late afternoon breaking news. Gary Pinkel stepping down at the end of the season because of health reasons. We're heading now back to Kansas City. We had Brent Musburger on earlier, and Maria Taylor is at the stadium. Maria, thank you very much for the time. I know you've had a chance to not only observe the scene, but we're apparently having a little bit of difficulty with Maria, but we are watching some pictures. We're watching some. Have been watching some pictures of Coach Pinkel. I'll tell you what. We will try to go back to Kansas City in just a moment. When we come back, we're live in Starkville.
Paul Finebaum here.
Closing time. Open all the doors.
And a scene from Arrowhead Stadium of the Missouri football team kneeling down praying in the aftermath of Coach Pinkel's announcement. We welcome you back to our program live here in Starkville, and we just saw a shot of the Missouri team holding hands in Missouri. Let's go to Maria Taylor, who is live in Kansas City, has just visited with officials, including Coach Pinkel. Maria, thank you for the time. Good afternoon.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, Paul.
Describe what you have seen. You were in Missouri earlier this week covering the protests. Now you're covering this extraordinary and stunning resignation. Tell us what you have seen and heard and observed this afternoon.
Well, you're right, Paul. I was in Columbia on Monday after the resignation of President Tim Wolf, and it seemed as though there was a sigh of relief from the football players that I talked to outside of the football complex. They were excited to get back to practice, to get back to the field, to get back to some normalcy. And then, with the revelation of the resignation of their head coach, Gary Pinkel, I saw them come into Arrowhead Stadium today for their walkthrough, very solemn. You could see it in the body language. A lot of the kids circling up and trying to gather together. They prayed for the coaches. They prayed for Gary Pinkel. They prayed for his doctors. And they kind of had a talk about all they can worry about is themselves moving forward. Also got a chance to spend some time with Gary Pinkel, and he said it wasn't his plan to tell his team today that he was going to end up resigning at the end of the season. He said that there was a leak, and he felt as though his staff and his players needed to hear it from him, what was going to be happening in the future. So there was exactly 1 hour from the time that he found out that there was a leak to him sitting down with his team and his staff to tell them about the fact that he had some health issues and the fact that he would be resigning at the end of the season, Paul.
Maria, we've obviously shared what little information we know, and I'm not trying to put you in a position of doing anything other than reporting what you know, but in visiting with Coach Pinkel, in being around there, is there any way to characterize his situation other than that he is stepping down?
Well, the way that he described it is that the issue that he is having with his lymphoma is a situation where it could be with him forever. It's not something that's going to go away. It could get better or it could flare up and it could be worse. But what happened was when he had his PET scan after the Vanderbilt game, he said it was encouraging and it was good news, and he thought about this idea that he really wanted to embrace good times. And he said that that's difficult to do when you're actually having to work 6 days out of the week for 9 months in a year. He wanted to spend more time with his family, and that's when he made the decision. It was immediately after that scan. He talked to his family about it, and then decided that he was going to eventually tell his players and staffs. And again, that was a plan that he wanted to set in motion next Sunday, being able to tell everyone that he was going to resign at the end of the season.
Marie, he's obviously a very sensitive person, and I mean, we all know he's a hard-nosed football coach, but he is very sensitive and at times philosophical. I realize this has been a tumultuous week for him. You've been there, you've seen it all yourself, but how would you describe your conversation with him, and just in terms of the tone and tenor and his demeanor?
You know, it's interesting that you say that, Paul, because I got on the phone with Dave Steckles, the former defensive coordinator under Gary Pinkel, and he coached with Coach Pinkel for 19 years. And he said this is going to be a really difficult 3 to 4 weeks for Pinkel, because one thing that he definitely is passionate, and he's passionate about his coaches, his players, and his family. And he's certainly going to have a hard time with having to walk away from them at the end of the season. But he also said that one thing that he learned from Coach Pinkel is that there's going to be a discipline in place in order to keep this team together and keep them working towards the common goal, and that certainly is winning. But I have to tell you, talking to him on the field, he seemed very encouraged. He seemed as though he wanted to focus on being around his team. I mean, I told you they huddled up in the middle of the field and had a moment of prayer and kind of bringing each other back together. And I asked him if he think that this could be a rallying cry for this team against BYU on Saturday. He said, to be honest, he really doesn't know at all, but he knows he has a great group of young men, and he's certainly feeling encouraged by that during this time.
Maria, just an extraordinary job reporting early in the week from Columbia, and obviously today. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
Maria Taylor, live at Arrowhead Stadium with the story we brought to you earlier about Coach Pinkel stepping down today at the end of the season. Game tomorrow, of course, against BYU, and we'll have it here on the SEC Network. Take a few phone calls here before we wind things down from Starkville. Let's talk to Jarius in Lake Charles. Good afternoon. Jarius, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Leonard Fournette, they was talking about him not being a Heisman Trophy leader.
Yes, sir.
His first game was canceled against McNeese, and he's still leading the FBS. So,
yeah, you know, Jarius, it's a great analysis there. I think it's I think there has been, and I'll include myself as a Heisman voter, a bit of an overreaction to what we saw Saturday night. I think if he has a monster game tomorrow, he'll work himself back into it. The problem with Heisman voters, we put so much emphasis on what we just got through seeing, not what we did or didn't see earlier in the year. Thank you for the call, though. Barry is in Jacksonville, Florida. Barry, good afternoon.
Paul Finebaum, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
I've been trying to get into your show for the last couple of weeks. I want to talk to you about the SEC championship coming up.
I'm so glad you made it.
At this point, it looks like it's probably going to end up being Florida and Alabama in this.
I would certainly think so, yeah.
Knocking, they're going to start rocking. There is a lot of people that are been talking for the last several years about the Tide, and the Tide has done their thing. Do not get me wrong, the Tide has been great for the last 8 or 9 years.
Okay.
But Florida, when they play the Tide, is going to end that dynasty.
Well, you know what, Gary. Listen, Barry, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I just think it's a little bit early to be talking about that game, considering Alabama's playing Mississippi State tomorrow, Auburn in a couple of weeks. So plenty of time to discuss Alabama and Florida, assuming Alabama gets to the SEC championship game. Daryl is up next in Shreveport. Hey, Daryl.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Look, I just want to say something. I'm an LSU guy, but I'm also an SEC guy. I want to say something about Gary Pinkel. I think that he handled this whole deal with class, not just the way that he stood behind his players, but when he knew he was sick and he knew that he was going to, this was going to be his last season. I think he did the right thing by announcing, and I've heard other people say maybe he didn't, but I think he did for 2 reasons. Number one, that keeps the school from having to wait the last minute to try to go look for a coach, and it probably won't hurt recruiting as bad as if you wait until the end of the year. I just want to know your feeling on that.
No, I completely agree, Dale. And I have to admit, we came here today with such enthusiasm and had a great first 2 hours. Then we heard the news about Coach Finkel, which is terribly sad, and we're also dealing, the whole world's dealing with this terrible tragedy going on contemporaneously in Paris, and it's just been it's really cast a pall on the whole day, and I try not to show emotions on this program, but it's very difficult since we heard both stories. I mean, certainly. In Coach Finkel's case, I'm just personally sad, and in the Paris case, I mean, words can't describe what's going on.
I mean, you do a hell of a job at what you do, and sometimes it's difficult to keep emotion.
Yeah, but I'm really glad what you said, because I think Coach Finkel dealt with the issues the other day in the only way that he could, and it's so easy for people to look at that politically, and certainly protest involves politics, but I think he deep down felt like he was doing the best thing for his players. He stood up for them, even if he didn't completely agree with the issues. I mean, but he did what he had to do, and here we are again on a totally different issue involving Coach Finkel.
Yeah, and the only other thing I want to say is, as long as I've still got my coach at LSU and Saban's at Alabama, we're never going to beat him.
Well,
that's all I can say.
Yeah, you gotta laugh at me there, Daryl.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think tomorrow night is a big game for Les Miles.
Big game.
I really do, because it's not. I mean, people appreciate Coach Miles, but I think it was the stubbornness that has really frustrated people. I mean, people love Coach Miles and they love the program, but I mean, I think most people. I say most people. A lot of people did not see that coming. I happen to be one who could figure it out, as uninformed as I am. But thank you so much, Darryl.
I saw it coming. Well, thank you for taking my call.
Appreciate it. Really nice of you to call. Well, most of you are leaving us now. We've had an extraordinary day here in Starkville. We began with Coach Mullen. Had a blast the first hour, and then we heard the Gary Pinkel news, and it has been difficult to digest and comprehend it all. But certainly we thank all of you for being a part of our show.
Mom, I can't.
Hey there, everybody. We're Mike and Mike.
It's that time of year again, Greenie.
You're absolutely right, Golick. The college football playoff is here.
And we're giving you the chance to be in with us at the national championship game.
Here's what you do. Listen live every weekday for your chance to win the Mike and Mike at the college football playoff sweepstakes presented by AutoZone.
Listen live for that winning word, then just enter for your chance to win.
We're picking a winner every week. Who's in?
Visit ESPNradio.com/MikeCFP for complete contest rules.
Hey there, everybody. We're Mike and Mike.
It's that time of year again, Greenie.
You're absolutely right, Golick. The college football playoff is here.
And we're giving you the chance to be in with us at the national championship game.
Here's what you do. Listen live every weekday for your chance to win the Mike and Mike at the college football playoff sweepstakes presented by AutoZone.
Listen live for that winning word, then just enter for your chance to win.
We're picking a winner every week. Who's in?
Visit ESPNradio.com/MikeCFP for complete contest rules. It's a football Sunday doubleheader. First in Green Bay, the Packers face the Lions.
Got it! Touchdown!
Then at MetLife Stadium, the Giants host the undefeated Patriots. Coverage begins Sunday at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio.